If you've been struggling to find an ITX case for massive triple slot GPU support, well, Silverstone might have made the case for you. Today we're taking a look at the new SG14 and SG15, and no, these are not microwaves. These are two of their new ITX cases and are an expansion on their very successful and still recommended today SG13. Now, as you can probably see from this angle, these are not very compact ITX cases at all. They're nowhere near as compact as the SG13. These two cases are both 19 liters in volume, so kind of pushing the edge of what we would call a small form factor case. But with that, you do get some fairly decent hardware compatibility. Big GPUs can definitely fit in both of these cases, and you also get big CPU cooler support as well. But these two cases have something else to worry about, and that's called the Cooler Master NR200. That's a case that is slightly smaller, slightly cheaper, and actually has better hardware compatibility. Now, I'm going to try and make this a very quick review, and just to save us both time, the bottom line is that these two cases are kind of mediocre. I accepted these for review because I really thought that they would follow up on the success of the SG13, which is still a case that I definitely recommend today, but that is just not the case here. Pretty much any day of the week, the Cooler Master NR200 is a much better choice. So firstly, the SG14 and SG15 are actually the same case on the inside, completely identical hardware layout and compatibility, which is actually not too bad, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. The difference is entirely on the exterior. The SG14 will be on offer for around $100 US and uses the typical budget PC case material of plastic and steel. The SG15 aims to be a more premium offering of the two, but is on offer for as much as $190 US, I'm told, and for that price, it is just absolutely a no-go. There is zero reason that the SG15 should cost that much. As you'll see, the quality of the case is nowhere near close to that. Now, as I said in the intro, these two cases are an expansion of the ever-popular SG13, which came in at just 11 liters, and I still think that's an excellent, simple design today, but I have to say the SG14 and SG15 are the most microwave-looking cases that I've ever seen. I really feel that ITX cases have moved beyond this plain boxy design aesthetic quite a while ago. The included rubber adhesive feet can be placed on one of the side panels instead to give you a smaller footprint design, but you will have to compromise on airflow on the bottom panel. And although the SG15 aims to be the more premium case out of the two, it's actually the SG14 that I think looks the cleanest, simplest, and most refined. Now, opening up the SG15, you'll start to realize that this should not be almost a $200 US case. For starters, the aluminium finish looks a bit cheap, inconsistent, and flaky compared to something like the Ncase M1 or Form T1, which are also right around that $200 mark. All of the panels use spring-loaded thumb screws, but these feel absolutely awful to unscrew. And we do get magnetic dust filters, which is appreciated, but these include magnetic tape that looks like it was cut with a stapler. For an almost $200 case, I'm not asking for it to be perfect, but I do expect a premium finish and user experience, and that's just not what we're getting here. But let's move on to a more positive note, and that's hardware compatibility. And this is something that has really been pushed to the limits in ITX cases over the past couple of years, where now you can easily build an insanely powerful gaming and rendering system in a case under 10 liters. But these two cases are almost double that at 19 liters, and that makes them around 1 liter bigger than the Cooler Master NR200. So here's what 19 liters of volume gets you. Firstly, massive graphics card support. 3-slot cards up to 330mm in length and 148mm in height will fit here no problem at all. You'll also find a small graphics card support for when using the case vertically to prevent GPU sag, but I actually found this to prevent our RTX 2070 Super FE to be seated properly, which is a massive oversight on Silverstone's behalf. Next, we do get massive CPU cooler support with a height clearance of up to 182mm. You'll have no problem fitting big dual tower coolers like Noctua's NH-D15. For liquid cooling, a 240mm radiator can be mounted on the side bracket, although clearance here does need to be kept in mind. There's only 14mm of breathing room between the fans and the power supply when using a standard 53mm thick all-in-one cooler, And the radiator fans do also overhang the motherboard, which means that your pump lock and memory DIMMs will need to be limited to a height of 55mm. As an example, the NZXT Kraken X53 has around 1mm of breathing room above the pump block, and G-Skill's Trident Z memory have around 8 to 10 mils to spare. The supported and default power supply form factor here is ATX, and there is no SFX bracket included, unfortunately. ATX power supplies feel like an unnecessarily tight fit in these cases. There's minimal room for cable routing underneath, and in general, cable management is just so much less tidier with an ATX unit. Moving on to thermal performance, we're looking at the SG14 here with dust filters removed, and we get very similar CPU thermal performance to the 12.5 liter Ncase M1 at around the same noise level as well. As a fairer comparison to a case of similar volume though, the Cooler Master NR200 can beat the SG14 here by around 4 degrees C whilst at a lower fan speed and noise level. VRM thermals for our motherboard were the warmest among the cases that I've tested with this setup, even warmer than other cases that ran the CPU a bit hotter, simply because there aren't any fans pointed at the motherboard, which all of these other cases have. When it comes to GPU thermals, again, the SG14 is just okay. We're at 76 degrees C here for our RTX 2070 Super Founders Edition with the fan speed locked at 2000 RPM, which puts it slightly ahead of the Streacom DA2. The Cooler Master NR200 has a much more organized airflow setup for the GPU, and there you're looking at anywhere between 5 to 7 degrees cooler at slightly louder noise levels. So my overall thoughts here, starting with the SG14. This case is just okay. It's not bad by any means, but it doesn't really excel in any area that would make me recommend it to you guys to actually buy and use for your ITX systems. It doesn't live up to the hype that was the SG13, which I still think is a great case to buy today. I would definitely say that the Cooler Master NR200 is better in every single way. It's better in terms of thermal performance, space optimization, flexibility, total volume and footprint, and it's also a few bucks cheaper. You also have excellent support for custom loops, which makes this a great case for a range of budgets. The SG15, on the other hand, I would borderline say is offensive for $190 US. There is absolutely no way that this case should cost that much. For that amount of money plus a bit of spare change, you could literally get a formed T1, which is anodized and CNC'd aluminium. And if you're interested in other ITX cases that I do currently recommend, I will leave them linked down below in the description. As always, a huge thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.